Hi everyone, this is Cecilia for Sheep Esports and I am at TFT Paris Open, and with me I have...
Hi, I'm Dave Guskin. I'm the game director for Riftbound, so that means I run the team that makes the game parts of Riftbound. I also help lead strategy and vision for the game.
So what is your work on a day-to-day basis?
So I do a lot less game design than I'd like in general, but in general I'll kind of help out the team with playtesting, discussions about future product and sets. I'll work with executives and other teams to make sure that we're getting what we need to kind of unblock my team, and then I'll also kind of do forward planning, like allocation of staffing and things like that. So it's kind of more of a management role, and then the leadership things that I get to do are mostly kind of planning ahead, doing road mapping, working with production to try to make sure that we get things in at the right time. And then I guess there's a lot of things I do when I'm not traveling, and when we have a set in production, I'll do a review of all the cards. So about once every week, I'll go through every card in the file, look at it mocked up, and make sure that it looks correct.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Project K was announced, or Riftbound was announced at TFT Macau Open 1 year ago?
That's right, yeah. So we had been testing it with players in China for a little bit, and then also with players internally at Riot and externally in Los Angeles. But the first time we really had like a public kind of play of it was at the TFT Macau Open, last year, about 1 year ago.
Yeah, so like looking back 1 year, we had TFT Open in Paris. How is Riftbound doing?
Good. I would say, not surprisingly, but like very, very good. I think players are really excited about the game. I think a lot of people are having a great time playing it at stores. I see a lot of chatter online and people talking about, decks and exploring the game. I think it's really good. I think one thing that maybe surprised me a little bit in a good way is just the number of people bringing in their friends from outside of TCGs, right? So, and people coming over from other TCGs to try it out. So that's been really cool to see.
Some could say that the TCG market is kind of feeling up. So what has Riftbound that, what is a unique trait of Riftbound that sensitizes?
So we built Riftbound from the ground up to be a really great in-person social multiplayer game. Mm-hmm. So I think among all the card games, like the strategy card games that exist, I think Riftbound is kind of best suited for playing with a group of friends. The things like the battlefield control and kind of being able to choose your moment to really make your big play is something that Riftbound, I think, does really well, maybe even better than other TCGs. And that's something that's a big strength of ours. So that's, I think, the best part. Obviously, if you love League of Legends, then you get to play with your League of Legends champions in this game. I think that kind of appeals to a particular part of the audience. And then for people who love TCGs, there's just a lot of cool stuff to love about the battlefields and the resource system.
So it has a multiplayer function as well.
Yeah,
can you introduce that a bit?
Yeah, so as with many TCGs, you can still play 1v1, and our competitive formats are 1v1. But you can also play 3 or 4 player free-for-all, which means that everyone sits down at the table and all the battlefields are up for grabs, and everyone is trying to race to the victory score of 8. And then you can also play 2v2, which means that you sit with a partner on a team and you score together and you win together and you're fighting against another team of 2, and that's got some kind of interesting competitive and cooperative elements to it.
There are many players and there are many interested in Riftbound. However, a problem that happened with Origin is that there was a bigger amount than the release was. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so Riftbound's a new game, and we're doing our best to kind of estimate how much to print and how much to ship to various places based on the demand that we're hearing from players and from stores and from distributors. And the timelines are long. So many months ago, we had to make decisions about how much to print, and we got as much time as we could on the printer, and we tried to make sure to ship it as fast as we could. And still, I think we fell short of player demand, which is great. Good problem to have. Still a problem. So we're working as fast as we can, basically, to get product in the hands of players. Part of that is printing a lot more of it, and part of it is getting it as quickly as possible into the hands of stores and players.
Is there a specific region or maybe country that you were surprised to hear from it has such a big demand?
I don't know about surprise, but I think there's a large French community, I think, that loves TCGs, and they're really excited about Riftbound. I think that there was more excitement in North America and in Europe just broadly than I thought, because as you mentioned, there's many TCGs out there, right? It's a pretty packed space, and it's kind of great to see people trying it out and liking it so much that they're telling their friends, and then there's a lot of demand and excitement for it.
Yeah, and you just launched the French cards just a couple of days ago.
Yeah, right. So we have the trial decks here, which we use for demoing in French, and then we also have the special promo, Altered Unity, in French. with cool promotional art for TFT. So yeah, that's coming soon. I think mid 2026 is when it'll be out in French language in booster packs.
Can players expect also other language besides Chinese, English, and French?
Yeah, so we haven't announced anything yet, and I don't have any details about specific languages to share, but I will say we're like watching and listening, and as players say like, hey, I really like this in my language, like we totally hear that, and we're trying to make sure that we both make a good kind of sustainable case for a language. We don't want to start printing a language, find out, oh no, we've overprinted, and then have to stop. That's like a really bad experience for players. But if there is demand, there is interest, we definitely want to hear that and make steps towards getting that to become a reality.
So in that regard, when you do international events and there is maybe a French player going to, let's say, Bologna event, Riftbound, regional qualifier in February, can they use the French deck?
Yeah, so you're allowed to play with any language of cards you have. You just can't mix languages in the same deck right now. I've heard a lot of player feedback actually very recently as we've announced French language cards. They're like, hey, can I mix French and English? Because I've already collected English cards. And the current rules say no, but players are saying, hey, that's really painful. I'd like to be able to do that. Is that something we're currently thinking about and discussing changing? But right now you can definitely, as long as all your cards are in the same language, if I have an English deck, you have a French deck, this other person has a Chinese deck, we're allowed to play together. You just can't mix the language inside a single deck currently.
More looking towards the future, there are a few questions that I'm really, really curious about.
Yeah.
Would you consider doing a kind of secret layer collaboration or like product going into the future?
Yeah, so Secret Layer is something that Magic the Gathering does, where it's kind of like a special kind of collectible product that they'll do like collaborations with special artists or with various IPs. We've certainly talked about it. I think extra special collectibles is something we're really interested in thinking about in trying to figure out what the audience is interested in. We at the World's Collector Box with League Worlds at the end of this year. We've got stuff planned for next year. We did the Arcane box set. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration with individual artists. That's really exciting, and I talk with our creatives all the time about that. And I think there's really interesting opportunities for just kind of like special one-off collector products. Whether we do it exactly the same way as that, I don't know, but that's something that we're still kind of in the works on.
Is there an IP that you personally, so like not as Game Interactive, but like
sure, just like as a player of TCGs?
Yes, would you like to collaborate with?
There's a few, I guess. Is there one that I could call out? I don't know. It's weird to think about, right? Because like, well, I work on a game with an IP. Is there like a different IP? But there's like a lot of cool games that Blizzard has made. There's a lot of single player RPGs that I would also be really interested in, like maybe doing a collab on. So it's kind of interesting to think about that. One of the interesting things about League of Legends is there's all these alternate universes and the skin lines. So I feel like there's a lot for us to explore before we move on to like collab with other IPs. But I think it's something we could definitely keep talking about.
And looking inside the card, so like not just out there.
Right, yeah.
Is there a limit to what mechanics you would like to introduce to the game?
I think we always have to be careful about the amount of complexity we introduce, right? I want to make sure that we keep Riftbound approachable. So if you come in 1 to 5 years from now, it's not going to be like 5 times harder to get in, right? I want it to be straightforward and an easy on-ramp. So in that way, we do think about like how to constrain the number of mechanics and then the kind of amount of complexity. But there's a lot of kind of interrelated mechanics you can make, right? So here's a spell mechanic and here's a different spell mechanic. Here's the thing that cares about casting spells. Okay, all these things work together, and it's not that much more complicated to understand all 3 together. And so we look for ways to do that where we can kind of like help provide you with the guardrails of like, okay, cool, I'm playing a spell deck. Here are the things I have to worry about. And in that way, it becomes easier to kind of like get batches or groups of mechanics together. So that's a way that we think about that. It's one of the hardest problems, I would say, in making content for a card game is that you make so many cards and so many sets over the years. You really got to think about like how to constrain that. The other way we do it is as we make more and more sets, eventually the competitive environment, or what we expect to be played at local game stores, will be the standard format, which is only the most recent 2 years of sets. And so that limits the amount of complexity because you only get the total amount in 2 years. So it's still a lot, but it's not like the entirety of the game's amount of complexity.
More than the quantity, I was thinking of the quality of mechanics. So
sure.
Is there maybe a limitation based on design of the game or based on what you think is approachable for players? So is there maybe a mechanic that you think maybe right now, maybe in 10 years, no,
sure.
maybe right now it would not be the best and optimal choice for Riftbound?
Yeah, I mean, I'll honestly say that like there are some mechanics we have right now that are hard to approach. Like for example, the hidden mechanic I think is a bit complicated. We really wanted to get this sense of like I'm laying a trap for you, right? That's something that's really exciting to us. I think that's a mechanic we'll keep coming back to and trying to refine and improve. But I think when you just try to learn it, it's like it's a lot to learn, right, for a single mechanic. Are there other mechanics? I think there's a lot of stuff with like multiple cards interacting to do kind of crazy things that I think we'll eventually do. But in the first year, I think we should probably, you don't need to do that with kind of good old-fashioned Riftbound, right? You're just kind of learning the systems. You don't have to create some crazy engine that is just hard to process what's going on.
I was talking to Travis Gafford, who is more proficient in TCGs than I am, and he was saying that there are a lot of TCGs around, there were a lot of introduced over the years, and possibly the third set that they usually release is when you actually see the health of the game and how it is. Would you agree? And how do you, expect Riftbound to
I think that's really wise, right? Like a lot of times the first set, could be a flash in the pan, right? People are like very excited, but maybe they won't stick around, or maybe there's more demand than actually is player demand because people are speculating on the collectibles and things like that, right? So I think when you see how people come back for the second set and for the third set, and even the first full year, then you get a good sense of like who's here, who's sticking around for the long term, and are they bringing in their friends? Do we still have new players coming in, and do they enjoy it? I think that's when you really learn. So I do agree with that sentiment. I think it's not always like exactly the third set, but I think that's a good barometer.
One of the other things that I wanted to ask about is the errata courage of the game. So like, it's different than League of Legends and Valorant because you have a physical game.
Yeah.
So how do you approach cards that you have to tweak but that were already printed?
Yeah, so great question. In general, you can't really patch a physical card game, right? I'm not going to go to everyone's house with a Sharpie and change their card. Sometimes we're forced to say, hey, this card is not exactly the way it was written. It's like we made a typo, or it doesn't work with the rules, and we just realized that. And we hope to keep those few and far between. We had to do a few more at the beginning. New game, obviously we're learning, as well as everyone else is. But then over time, I expect to do many fewer of those. Because we can't change the text of the cards, we really have a couple tools. One is that we can ban cards if they are too powerful or like create situations that are really unfun in gameplay. Then that's always a tool we have available to us. I never like telling a person they can't play with their cards, and so that's a tool I want to use sparingly. But if a competitive environment looks really unfun, or things seem like they're just not good, then we can intervene if we have to. And then the other way we can do it is as we build new sets, we'll often spend a little bit of time thinking about like, well, what's the riskiest part here? If something goes wrong, how will it go wrong? And then we can provide tools inside the set that are kind of like secrets, basically, that they get really strong, but only if that risk actually happens, right? So for example, if spells are really good, there's this card in the set that says, I'm gonna kill all the spells or whatever, right? Like take them all out of your hand. That card might be really expensive and therefore really bad unless spells are really, really good, and then it becomes really, really strong. And so we try to put in those kind of pressure release valves when we can. Obviously that requires us to kind of see the future a little bit and think about what's risky, but that's mostly the two ways we handle that sort of thing.
As a last question before the rapid fire ones, how would you want players to feel 1 year from now, having invested so heavily in Riftbound in terms of time, financial resources?
Yeah, I mean, I would love players to think like, wow, Riftbound is my game and it's going to be around for a long time, right? Like Riot supports it, our partners who help us with print production support it, and there's a vibrant community that I just love going to every week and playing, right? That's what I love players to kind of think and feel, right? I think that the best way to know that like, hey, this game is really something special is people want to invite their friends to come play with them, right? Even if you don't know how it works, if you sit down at the table and you kind of get like, oh, cool, there's like battlefields and champions, and you have a fun time and you're still learning and you're excited to learn, I think that's the best outcome.
Okay, so rapid fire question.
Okay, hit me.
So, could not legend champions become legends, like Heimerdinger or TF?
Potentially, yes.
What is the current strongest deck in the meta?
Probably either Kaisa or Annie.
What is Spirit Forge's strongest deck?
My thinking is Lucian could be Azir.
And what about the legend? Could be different.
Yeah, so strongest legend. It's probably still Azir, I think. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what is one card that you feel it could be really, really strong that is not a champion though?
That people already think are strong, or is not strong right now?
Maybe from Spirit Forge.
From Spirit Forged. Sterix Gage. It's an
What-
equipment that has quick draw. It's very strong, I think.
Would you ever implement 3 runes cards or decks?
Sorry, what?
Like, would you ever implement cards that require 3 different runes or decks that
Oh, I
require
see.
3 different runes?
We've talked about it.
What was the consensus?
At some point. When, not if.
When, not if. What do you want to be when you grow up?
A game director. No, I used to want to be like a scientist. So my background is in science. I still love experimenting. It's one of the things I love about game design. The other thing I'd love to be, I don't know, a dog dad. I love dogs. So I currently don't have a dog. I used to have a dog. So I hope that I get another one.
So, fantastically talking, what is the chemical composition of Riftbound?
It's like 2/3 caffeine, and then the last third is probably something explosive and something that's like makes you feel really warm and fuzzy inside. Probably radioactive.
What is an inside joke, maybe in one word, that only your team would get?
There's a card in the first set called Pit Crew. Its flavor text is the motto of my team.
Oh, nice.
Good enough, let's go.
Is there any other hidden, Easter eggs that maybe you want to share with fans?
Not that I can think of. I'm pretty open and transparent when I talk with folks, so most of the secrets I've probably already said.
So maybe a shout out, but you can also pass. I didn't tell you, but you can pass any question that I tell you.
Wow, I could've
what
passed.
is maybe what is maybe a TCG that Riftbound could learn from?
Well, we learned from a lot of TCGs. I would say the ones that I think are most interesting to learn from are Magic the Gathering, One Piece, and Lorcana.
What is one quality from each that you would like to strive for Riftbound to have?
Yeah, Magic, it's longevity and depth. Lorcana, it's approachability. And One Piece, it's relationship to the characters from the source IP.
When are restamps coming out for Origins?
When are what coming out?
Like the stamps again. Yeah, we have 1 or 2 left.
Okay, sorry,
like-
say it again.
When are reprints coming out for Origins?
So we have already made more product and we're shipping it as quickly as we can. Don't know exactly when it'll hit stores, probably within a month or 2 if it hasn't already. In terms of cards, individual cards from inside Origins, it just kind of depends on which set needs them, and we'll reprint them when they make sense too.
Can you share one legend for each of Unleashed, Vendetta, and Radiance?
No, not really. If you looked at the art for Unleashed and Vendetta, I think you'll get a sense of maybe which champions have legends in the set. So we shared the key art from those sets, the booster pack art. I don't think we shared anything from Radiance, so I can't really share anything.